Hi, this instruction is on crutches. Crutches are probably the widest recognized piece of durable medical equipment there is. They come in several different versions. We have axillary crutches, we have forearm crutches, and then we have a variant on sizing of the two. Okay, an axillary crutch is a crutch that goes on one or both sides of the body that the cushion rests up against the axilla. The axilla is a muscle group that sits at the base of the armpit. We're going to go into what the axilla is here in a little bit in another segment, but it basically, the cushion is adjusted so that it rests on the axilla, which is approximately 3 inches below the actual center of the armpit. The most common complaint you hear about crutches is that when you use them, they hurt your armpit. 90% of the time that's because the crutch itself isn't fit properly and they're leaning into it, which is taking the tendons and the ends of the muscles and rubbing on them, causing irritation. Properly sized crutches don't have nearly the discomfort, and as long as they're properly used, everything is kept to a minimum. So sizing is important. The sizing on an axillary crutch is slightly different than sizing on a forearm crutch, and we're going to go through the forearm crutch first. A forearm crutch is a crutch that is designed for someone who is going to be in crutches a very long time. These are long-term use crutches. Axillary crutches are designed for short-term use, anything 3 to 6 months tops. The forearm crutch is, like I said, it's designed for long-term use, polio, a couple of other diseases that cause the need for these kind of crutches. And the crutch itself is designed so that once it's being used, that if you let it go, the crutch itself is going to stay on the arm. That's the reason why the cuff is made the way it is. Also, that the structure used for a forearm crutch, when you have it, it's going to be attached somewhere between the elbow and the wrist for the cuff, and the issue or the necessity is that when you have your hand on the hand grip, that this structure reinforces the body's ergonomic stance. Okay. Now, for adjusting, there are 2 points on the forearm crutch. There is the cuff, and then there is the unopposed leg. Ideally, we want to do the unopposed leg first, simply to get that out of the way. It's the longest, it's the hardest to make sure that you've got proper. Okay. Now, for a unopposed crutch, whether it's an axillary or this forearm, again, the measurement to start with is the ground to the crease of the wrist. Ground to the crease of the wrist. That gives you a good starting point, but there may be a need to adjust depending on the patient's comfortability and familiarity with using the forearm crutch. So, basic adjustment, you've got a collar, you've got a leg that telescopes in and out, and you have a series of push buttons. On a forearm crutch, the push buttons are on both sides. Now what you simply do, again, take that measurement from the ground to the crease of the wrist, and at that point you can set it up, flip the cuff out of the way, and have it so that you can see it's reasonably comfortable. For this, we're going to adjust it to me, and again, we want to have a slight bend to the elbow, but that's the proper height. Now, for the cuff, let me take a step back here. Once you have the height adjust, tighten this collar so that it's secure, no rattly noises, that ends all right. Now for the cuff, again, we want to have the cuff somewhere between the elbow and the wrist, and most common is about 1/3 of the distance down between the elbow and the wrist. So for measurement on this crutch, that's about right. Once you get it close, same the way that you adjust on the unipose leg. There's a collar. Adjust it out. Make sure that everything seems to fit. Tighten it all back. And now have the person try it. Again, because these are designed for people who are going to be using crutches a long time, the familiarity is there, unless we're dealing with pediatrics. But the crutch itself, because of the way that the arms hang off the body, arms don't necessarily hang straight down evenly. They're going to be slightly canted out. And that's exactly how this crutch is used. So when you have this crutch being deployed, that this firm connection points are all solid, the heights are measured, and then any detail adjustments that the patient may want, they may have developed a tendency to have the crutches out a little farther, in a little narrower, but at this point you've got basic structure. Forearm crutch, this is the cuff, this is the hand grip, these are the tips, adjustable collar, push button height adjust, push button height adjust. Okay, now the next is going to be the axillary crutches. Axillary crutches are, out of all the crutches, the most common. There are different takes, different options on some crutches. They go from the basic to the extremely option, or all the attachments on it. A basic axillary crutch, underarm pad, hand grip, unipose leg. Unipose leg again has 2 push buttons to adjust the height. Now, on a standard application for a axillary crutch, adjustment of the hand grip is last. What we want to make sure is that we get that proper fit from the ground to the axilla. And in this particular case, this crutch is just a little too tall for me. But the idea is that this pad resides right at that axilla point. Now, with this style of crutch, again, the push buttons will be here. This uses a wing nut that you simply unscrew. There's a little washer. Slide the bolt out, but leave the post in the crutch. So that way when the patient, once you have the height of the shoulder or the arm pad sized, then let them simply move that hand grip up and down until they find out where it's comfortable. Then once they do that, pull it out, find the closest hole, put the bolt back through it, washer, wing nut, and that's the size. Now, not all axillary crutches, and you don't have to tighten it down so tight that you're going to break these little wings off the wing nut. Snug. That's the sizing. Now, not all axillary crutches have a wing nut here. Not all of them have a push button here, but the vast majority do. If they don't have this wing nut, one of the options is this universal style. Okay, the universal style does many, many things. Even though this looks to be a small crutch, this is actually good for somebody over 6 feet tall. And they do that by having multiple layers of adjustability. Okay, now the crutch itself, like I said, the hand grips are something you want to adjust last. On our crutches, you're going to see a size matrix on this unipose leg. So what you want to do is you want to find that first. And again, this whole issue of making sure that we have the height adjusted before we get the hand grips adjusted. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the right height, and you can either go hole by hole or push the buttons in, turn it slightly, turn this post slightly, pull it down to the right size, let it click into place. Now, the funny thing, or the interesting thing I should say, about this particular crutch, because it's a universal, like I said before, it has multi-layers of adjustability. This is one. Well, the arm pad is another one. And if you look inside the tube here, you're going to see a series of buttons. What you need to do is push that button in and lift. And now the axilla support actually extends out farther. So now we have a crutch that it started out at 3 feet long, and now we have a crutch that is actually, I'm 5'8", and is designed to go even higher. Again, this push button is how you adjust it. Here's a little catch. These hand grips have these little red clips on the outside edge. And because once everything is sized and connected, it has to be a secure, solid fit, these red clips do double duty. They don't just lock the hand grip in place, they actually lock the whole structure into place. This tube fits down into here, and these holes correspond to holes inside the inner tube, and when you connect them all, it locks them all into place so nothing else can be adjusted. Now, like we said before on the axillary crutch, once you have the right height, and you see how it's fitting, it's not up inside my armpit, it's right at the base. Once we have that, then reach down, adjust for this hand grip. Make sure again, what we're looking for is a natural bend at the arm, 10 to 12 degrees. That's about right. Then you find the closest hole. In this particular case, it's going to be up just a little bit higher. And on crutches like this, we would rather have them up a little bit versus down, because we don't want to be reaching down, because then again, that causes us to press on the tendons that are in the arm, causing us to have sore armpits when we use the crutches. The crutches are designed to be used either singly or in pairs. And singly, very, very similar to the cane, where you want it to be on the opposite side of the injury. On a regular pair of crutches, when you're using both, it doesn't matter. The object is you want to do crutch, step, as opposed to planting the crutches, swinging your feet out, and then bringing the crutches in. The idea is that you want to have the weight slightly back and the crutches slightly forward and even out a bit. So when you walk with the axillary crutch, it's going to be out and then making up the gap. Very, very important. A lot of people get carried away with this. They think that they're very, very easy to use, which they are once they understand. But someone who gets a pair of crutches for the very first time, the first thing they're going to do is pay attention, walk about a dozen steps or so, and then they're going to drag that tip and stumble. So what we need to do is reinforce in their minds how to properly walk with these, and make sure that they understand that proper walking will stop that. Making sure that they understand that, don't drag the tips on the ground. Don't take too big a step. Make sure that the angles that they're using is a standard step. If you go a little too much, and if there's a slick spot, then the crutch goes away and you're in bigger trouble. So it's used in pairs or singly. Pairs, full body support. Singly, on the opposite side of the injury. Make sure that you take deliberate steps. Crutch first, then make up the distance with your step. Crutch first, then step. And again, we don't want to take too big an angle. You don't want to run with your crutches, because again, that's when accidents happen. So what we've covered the sizing of the universal crutch, axillary style. We've gone over standard axillary crutches, adjusting with wing nuts and push buttons. And we've gone over forearm crutches. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact the support desk. Thanks.